You're bored, that's a good sign. You're lying there, staring at the ceiling. Or maybe you're watching a mug of tea cool slowly on the table, its steam rising like a ghost losing interest. You're not doing anything. No music, no scrolling, no list of micro accomplishments to brag about to your pillow tonight. And you think to yourself, I'm bored. But here's the twist, that feeling? It's not a problem. It's a clue. A really, really underrated one. You've been taught boredom is a red flag, something to sweat away with entertainment, snacks, or impulsive online shopping carts filled with protein powders you'll never open. But what if that low hum of nothingness is actually your body saying, thank you, I finally have space to speak? That slow burn of boredom might be your nervous system sighing in relief. You've stopped running. You're not productive. And oddly enough, this is where real change can start. Not when you're running on ambition fumes, but when you're just here. Boredom is the strange waiting room of the brain. And like any decent waiting room, it's awkward, underdecorated, and filled with magazines you never asked to read. But it's also the threshold. The space between old habits winding down and new ones softly entering stage left. Remember how as a kid, you get bored and end up building a fort out of blankets or inventing a game using only 3 socks and your dog? That spark still lives in you. It just needs a little room and fewer push notifications. Mainstream psychology says boredom arises when we're understimulated and can't engage meaningfully with the world. But what if that's a clinical way of saying, you're actually ready to pay attention now? Attention, as it turns out, is what most healthy habits crave. You just haven't been giving it freely. And this matters, because habit formation, true habit formation, the kind that sticks longer than your gym membership, doesn't come from being wildly inspired all the time. It grows in quiet repetition. In slow, often boring moments. Like choosing water over soda at lunch. Or brushing your teeth before bed even when you're emotionally empty. It's not sexy, but it works. There's a fringe corner of behavioral science that considers boredom not as lack, but as space. One researcher even compared it to a soft reset for the prefrontal cortex, like pressing Ctrl-Alt-Delete on your stress patterns. Experts still argue whether boredom leads to innovation or just more doom scrolling, but here's the gentle truth, you can decide. You don't need to fear it anymore. Instead, try watching it. Sit with the tedium of making tea slowly. Walk without your phone. Let yourself be unimportant for 15 minutes. You're not falling behind. You're metabolizing a culture that convinced you constant stimulation equals value. That moment when you're tempted to fill the void with noise? That's where the magic lives. Because in that moment, if you pause instead, you begin to build something. Maybe not a podcast-worthy morning routine, but a breath, a stretch, a thought you haven't had before. And yes, it's deeply uncomfortable at first. That itch to check something, buy something, fix something, it's real. Your dopamine system is twitching, asking for its usual fix. But every time you choose stillness instead, you're loosening the grip. You're saying, hey, I can sit with myself. And that is no small deal. In this space, new motivations sprout. One's not based on guilt or comparison, but quiet curiosity. You might suddenly want to drink water just because your mouth feels dry. Not because an app reminded you. You might walk because your legs are asking, not because your smartwatch told you to close a ring. That's how boredom starts becoming wellness. And strangely enough, some monks and mindfulness practitioners intentionally chase boredom. They don't call it that, of course. They call it stillness, or presence, or just sitting. But it's the same pause you feel when your schedule opens up unexpectedly and you're not sure what to do with your hands. Here's a tiny exercise. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Just 5. Sit. Stare. Don't grab a thing. Don't plan the next 10 years. Let your brain pace nervously like a puppy the first time it's left alone. Then notice, when it calms down. You might feel annoyed, or sleepy, or you might suddenly remember something meaningful. A voice, a smell, a question you never let finish forming. This is the beginning, not of some intense overhaul, but of making friends with your own rhythm. And that rhythm doesn't care about your productivity metrics. It cares that you noticed it exists, that you turned down the volume of external life long enough to hear your internal one speak. So next time you feel that telltale, ugh, I'm bored, instead of reaching for stimulation, try leaning into it like a hammock. Let yourself swing a little, quietly uncomfortable, full of strange ideas. You might land on a new healthy habit not because someone prescribed it, but because your own mind whispered it forward. And that's a much stronger kind of motivation. Modern life, the antidote to stillness. You blink. You reach for your phone without thinking. It's not ringing, buzzing, or lighting up. But your hand moves anyway, trained like a sleepwalker chasing light. This is the moment you realize how allergic you've become to stillness. Modern life is designed almost too well to keep you from being bored. You can doom scroll while brushing your teeth, queue up a podcast for the 6-minute walk to the mailbox, and fall asleep mid-video only to wake up to an algorithm-assembled playlist whispering facts about Himalayan salt. Your brain is drowning in distraction, and it loves it. Sort of. You've been conditioned to fill every gap. Quiet? Play music. Waiting? Open an app. Staring into space? Quick, read a quote about productivity and repost it before your latte cools. But in doing all that, maybe without realizing it, you've built a fortress around your inner world. Nothing gets in, not even yourself. Mainstream health advice tells you to unplug, but what they don't say is how uncomfortable it is at first. Stillness feels itchy. It makes you face the things you've been dancing around: fatigue, guilt, worry, weird cravings, random memories from 2007. But these are the very things that shape your daily choices. You can't build sustainable health habits on top of a brain constantly running interference. There's something called stimulus fatigue, a well-documented psychological effect that happens when your senses are so constantly bombarded that they stop responding in useful ways. The result? You stop noticing your own body cues. Are you hungry or just bored? Tired or just overstimulated? Experts still argue whether this disconnect causes long-term motivation loss, but it's definitely not helping. And here's the kicker. The more distracted you are, the harder it becomes to stay consistent. Why? Because consistency requires noticing. You can't remember to drink water if you're unaware of your thirst. You can eat slower if you're eating while watching a show while also replying to work emails. Enter boredom not as a threat, but a recalibration tool. By embracing the quiet moments instead of running from them, you start to recalibrate your internal GPS. That whisper of, maybe I'll go for a walk, suddenly has room to speak before it's drowned out by the 7th video of a cat learning to high-five. And no, we're not anti-tech here. You don't need to yeet your smartphone into the ocean. You just need to shift the relationship. Technology isn't evil. It's just clingy. Let's talk about one fringe idea: digital fasting. Not the dramatic kind where you go live in a treehouse and communicate only through interpretive dance. No, just scheduled windows of disconnection, 20 minutes without media. Even that can feel revolutionary. Like sitting in a car without the radio. Or taking a bath without a playlist. The first few times you do it, it's awkward. Your brain flails around looking for something to do. But then, maybe after day 3 or 4, you start noticing little things. The rhythm of your breath. The tightness in your neck. The strange satisfaction of watching dust swirl in a beam of sunlight. Weirdly healing stuff. Boredom becomes an invitation, not a punishment. And from there, the possibility of new habits begins to creep in, not because you plan them, but because they fit the space that distraction used to occupy. You walk into the kitchen, no phone in hand, and you notice the bananas are about to go bad. So you make a smoothie. That smoothie turns into a Tuesday tradition. That tradition turns into a deeper appreciation of breakfast. And suddenly you're a person who nourishes their body in the morning, not because of a checklist, but because of space. It's these micro-decisions, born in quiet moments, that stack up to real health changes. Now, let's be real for a second. Stillness won't always feel sacred. Sometimes it's just boring. That's fine. You don't have to achieve spiritual enlightenment during your 10-minute tech break. Just notice. Be present for the boring. Because buried underneath that quiet might be the most honest parts of you. The parts that know exactly what you need. Sometimes you don't need another life hack or supplement recommendation. You need 3 slow breaths and a chance to stretch without a screen yelling at you to engage your core. There's a reason spas are quiet. There's a reason monasteries don't have TikTok. Stillness has always been tied to healing. The modern twist? You have to fight for it now. Build it into your schedule like it's a dentist appointment. Make boredom your meeting of the day. And when you do get still, when you feel the raw awkwardness of silence settle over your shoulders like a warm, itchy blanket, let it sit. You might not like it at first. But you might also find that in this pause, you remember something. Maybe even yourself. And no, you don't have to quit your job, move to Bali, or do yoga at dawn to reclaim this kind of stillness. It can start with one decision. Don't reach for your phone during your next cup of tea. Let yourself stare. Let your brain wander. If a healthy habit wants to join you in that moment, it will. You don't need to force it. You just need to make space. Because in a world designed to prevent boredom, choosing it might just be the healthiest act of rebellion. The brain on boredom. So now you're bored. You've resisted the gravitational pull of your phone, stared at your tea for a solid 3 minutes, and let your brain roam free like an unleashed dog in a quiet park. But here's what you probably didn't expect. Your mind starts doing weird things. Suddenly, memories pop up from nowhere. That time you forgot your lines in the school play. The exact way your grandmother folded towels. A jingle from a 2003 commercial you haven't heard in years. Welcome to your brain on boredom. Neurologically speaking, something beautiful and slightly bizarre is happening. When you're not actively focused on a task, your brain slips into what's called the default mode network. It's like your mental screensaver, seemingly idle, but actually buzzing in the background, organizing your life's thoughts like a backstage crew rearranging props. Mainstream science tells us this network is involved in daydreaming, memory consolidation, and something called autobiographical planning, aka imagining your future self. So, when you're bored and zoning out, your brain is essentially asking, okay, now that we're not putting out fires, what do we actually want? That quiet gap, that non-stimulated space? It's where long-term health decisions begin. Not from panic, but from reflection. Still, experts argue whether too much default mode activity can contribute to rumination and anxiety. The line between introspection and overthinking is, admittedly, razor thin. But here's where your awareness comes in. When you meet boredom with intention, rather than fear, it becomes a portal instead of a pit. And let's talk dopamine. Yes, our fickle little reward chemical. When you're bored, dopamine levels dip. This is why you start craving chips, checking messages, or planning a trip you'll never take. Your brain is used to quick hits. Scroll, like, notification, repeat. But when you don't give in, when you sit with the lull instead, your dopamine baseline starts to rebalance. The result? You begin to find tiny pleasures in things you previously bulldozed past. Chopping vegetables, folding laundry, noticing the exact shade of light in your room at 4:43 p.m. And that shift matters. Because healthy habits often require delayed gratification, the ability to do something now for a reward later. Sitting with boredom is like training for that. It's the mental version of holding a plank, minus the sore abs. Let's go fringe for a second. There's a theory floating around in neuroaesthetic circles. Yes, that's a real thing, that boredom increases your sensitivity to beauty. The less you bombard your brain with constant novelty, the more it notices subtleties. The curve of a ceramic mug, the softness of your favorite t-shirt, the sound of wind through your bathroom window. It's a kind of mental recalibration, a return to baseline wonder. So when you think you're doing nothing, you might actually be doing everything. You're resetting the noise, making space for sensory clarity, giving your prefrontal cortex, a key player in decision-making and willpower, a much-needed breather. Think of it like your brain cleaning its desk before starting a new project. And yes, that new project might just be becoming a person who remembers to stretch, drinks water before coffee, and maybe, just maybe, starts journaling for 5 minutes before bed. But of course, your brain resists this process at first. It throws tantrums. Boredom activates discomfort. Why? Because it requires you to confront a lack of external input, and sometimes, what's left in that quiet is old stress, unresolved to-do lists, or weird mental commentary about your socks. But if you can tolerate it, just tolerate it, the noise eventually fades. The nervous fluttering in your chest settles. The thoughts slow their spin. And a stillness emerges that isn't hollow, but full. And from that stillness, you might notice what your body actually wants. You realize you've been ignoring thirst signals. That your shoulders are tight from a week of hunching. That you've been craving a walk not for steps, but for sanity. These are the moments when real change becomes possible, not because you forced it, but because you felt it. It's like emotional compost. All the junk thoughts, distractions, and mental clutter get broken down in the dark, quiet soil of boredom. And from that, something green grows. A habit. A shift. A gentle motivation you can actually live with. But hey, let's not pretend this always feels profound. Sometimes your brain on boredom just spirals. You'll remember something cringy. Obsess over laundry. Think about how weird elbows are. It's fine. Let it pass. Like mental static. You don't need to engage with every thought. Just let them drift. You're not required to turn every moment into a self-improvement seminar. Instead, think of boredom as the trailhead. You're not climbing the mountain yet. You're just standing at the start, tying your metaphorical shoes, noticing the weather. And sometimes, standing still is the bravest part. Your brain doesn't need more stimulation to stay healthy. It needs space to process, to wander, to spark. So let it wander. Let it fidget. Let it get weird. This is the part no one talks about in habit change. The part where your brain goes quiet, then confused, then curious. That curiosity? That's the soft engine of change. Because when you allow yourself to be bored, truly, presently bored, you're not wasting time. You're laying the foundation for every habit that follows.